and gentlemen of the Borough Council. My father, John VARNER, was a barber in this community for 50 years. I was an insurance agent in this community for 4 years with an office in downtown Indiana. I now help operate a Christian radio station that broadcasts over this community. My son, Doug VARNER, has been operating a sound business in this community for almost 30 years. And in addition, for the past 3 years, has been working at establishing a new sign business. I've also served this community as the co-chair of the 175th Anniversary Celebration Committee, which reminds me that the 200th anniversary of the founding of Indiana Borough will take place in 2016. So whomever you elect as the mayor of this community in November of this year will have an extra pleasurable duty in the pre-planning of our bicentennial celebration. All of which to point out that our family, like so many other hard-working families, has been engaged in the Indiana business community for a long time. And we're members of the Indiana County Chamber of Commerce, and we're members of the Downtown Indiana Corporation. Each of us has endeavored to be law-abiding and helpful. It has been my high honor to serve this community as its mayor for 8 years. My record will prove that I never backed away from persisting for the right for all to be fairly treated in this community. While I'm here this evening to address an injustice, please know that I would be just as willing to appear under the same circumstances if it were your son who has been singled out. I'm not here to address the sign per se. My son has asked that I not speak for him nor for Mindsight, LLC. However, since the operating procedures of this borough lend themselves to severe scrutiny as they surround the saga of the Mindsight signs on the corner of 7th and Philadelphia Street, I shall address these issues as a tax-paying citizen of this tremendous community. I have no ownership or other vested interest in the Mindsight Corporation. This evening you have received a packet of materials that will identify the explicit disregard for business ethics, that will demonstrate the careless application of selective enforcement of borough ordinances, and that will adequately point out the sincere and honest attempts of Doug VARNER as the active partner for Mindsight Signs to comply with every directive of this sign fiasco. You will see documentation that was taken under oath in your zoning hearing board as to the explicit failure of your zoning code enforcement officers, Mr. Kirk and Mr. Peterson, to properly instruct the procedure for a sign permit for Mindsight. This sworn testimony was taken on December 20th, 2006. You will see documentation that was taken under oath that illustrates the helpful attitudes of both Mr. Kirk and of Mrs. M.J. Smith of the Indiana County Planning Office, as shared by Richard McFerrin of the Indiana Zoning Hearing Board of Appeals, dated December 20th, 2006. You will see documentation that was taken under oath that illustrates the integrity of this applicant for the Mindsight L.E.D. sign to be placed on the corner of 7th and Philadelphia Street, dated December 20th, 2006. You will find the generalized conclusion as expressed by Richard McFerrin of the Indiana Borough Zoning Hearing Board, dated December 20th, 2006. These transcripts are recorded, printed, and attested to by Valerie Laser, freelance court reporter and notary public, and dated the 28th day of December 2006, working for the Borough of Indiana. Additionally, you will find copies of the transcript of the Indiana County Court of Appeals, on which, in bold print, you will find the contradictory statements attributed to your zoning code enforcement staff by your solicitor. I've always found it a matter of significant concern that no attorney, including a borough solicitor, is sworn to tell the whole truth in a court of law, which of course allows attorneys a lot of leeway as to how they will present a case. While your borough manager was quoted in the Gazette as stating that the Mindsight signs on 7th and Philadelphia Street could cause a traffic hazard, may I remind you, and all of you, that PennDOT had already issued a sign permit for this location. His additional reference, as printed in the Gazette, was to the effect that a speeding motorist who is arrested claims a foul, since other motorists are speeding and not being arrested. This inference could well be taken that other lighted signs within the Borough of Indiana are as illegal as the Mindsight sign. Documented for your review will be copies of correspondence between your borough manager and me, in which he explicitly states, and I quote, "The questions you have posed for review almost entirely deal with events and procedures that are not recorded in any media, but rather are a matter of recollection of how specific permit applications were handled. This was Mr. Galler's response on behalf of you, the council members, to my specific questions that you'll see in your brochure as to the procedures that were followed for a sign permit to be issued to Indiana First Bank, the Render Broadcasting Corporation, and the First Commonwealth Financial Corporation, the Indiana Giant Eagle, the Agway Company, and the Mindsight LLC. This was my legitimate attempt to fully understand the differences in the application process for signage in Indiana Borough. A copy of that questionnaire is contained in your packet. Note, too, that I have personally visited with each of these sign holders to gather data for my appearance here this evening. Quote, not reported, unquote, stated Mr. Galler, but a, quote, matter of recollection on how specific permit applications were handled. If it were simply a matter of recollection, one would believe that the data requested could have been supplied easily, especially when said request was accompanied by a right to public record statement that he required me to sign. How convenient, when a person or persons determined to selectively enforce various provisions of the borough ordinances so as to deny a sign permit to a business person of integrity while granting a sign permit to others by some other convenient standard of procedure or practice couched in a matter of recollection by borough officials. In the opinions of some, you have collectively violated the civil rights of an Indiana business and those who represent that legitimate business entity. May I, for example, ask you to respond to these questions. What did you find so reckless, careless, or otherwise offensive to the people who live and work and travel through Indiana Borough about the Mindsight sign? A, was it the matter of providing the daily warnings of the Homeland National Security Office as to the status of terrorism? B, was it the ability to post Amber Alerts as needed? C, was it the portrayal of time and temperature? D, was it the promotion of businesses that function in the greater Indiana community, needing all the help they can get in these economic times? E, was it posting of hundreds of public service features for various civic organizations? Or F, was it the word for the day that encouraged people to research their dictionaries? There is another aspect. In trying to decipher your action as to require removal of the Mindsight sign, since none of the other four aforementioned signs do in fact conform to the section 5.150 of your Borough Code ordinance, which means somewhere, somehow, someone decided to ignore or grant an exception to that ordinance that specifically declares, and I quote, no signs illuminated by a flashing, pulsating, or intermittent source shall be permitted. Did you hear that? So then, what is the reason for this 30-some-odd month struggle for an Indiana business to be able to portray a sign that is in compliance with the same exceptions as those that have been granted to other sign displayers? Could it possibly be the fact that the Mindsight sign, unlike the others, has notably provided messages of encouragement and inspiration, sometimes quoting noted authors, like Ben Franklin, sometimes quoting from the time of scriptures of the Old and the New Testaments? Have you decided to hide behind some other reason for your objection to religious signage in Indiana Borough? Mindsight LLC has been a supporter of Christian broadcasting in Indiana, Pennsylvania on the Switch 103.7, on WMUT 105.1, and on the Sunday morning presentation of the Christian Witness Media Ministries on WDAD. We're grateful for this gracious support and this action. For this matter, but for more